did that first year, I looked around and I found the art that I liked the most. What resonated to me, what caught my eye, what things I would have been willing to pay for. Um, and since I'd already paid like $60 or whatever to get in the door, um, things had to be pretty damn cool for me to consider spending more money on that. You know, because you come into the door, and at least back then we did get a little bag of goodies that were like, here's a couple of free comics, here's, you know, coupons at this guy's table, here's some discount things, here's, you know, a panel that you might like and advertisements for it. And with the bag, you at least had a bag to put your crap in that you bought,
Yeah.
which seems like a no freaking brainer. You know, get some recyclable bags and add $1 to the freaking cost of the ticket and get people something that they can carry things in instead of just like holding it in their hands, which you're going to get sweaty after 20 minutes. You're going to eat at some point. You're going to drink at some point. You're going to go to the bathroom
Yeah.
at some point. Like, give people somewhere to put it. Um, and yeah, you could leave that to the person, but if you can do that for them and put your website on there,
Yeah.
there's a lot of win-wins that make this possible. So after looking around and seeing what I liked and what I would consider was a fair price to pay for it, I saw that like 11 by 14 prints were going for around 15, $20. And the ones that I liked, I thought, yeah, I would pay that. I would pay that to hang it up and have this. Or just to support this guy so he keeps making more things and to have a signature on there that may be worth something someday, because, you know, as a comic
Yeah.
nerd, you're always thinking that. Um, and so the next year, I also kind of did some recon on like original art and things like that. And I kind of, because I was in Artist Alley and I was looking around at stuff that people who are not professionals and who are not looking at the convention as being a source of money, but the convention being a source of opportunity. And you can make it both, but if you don't put in the work ahead of time, you can't also make it a source of money. And the
Yeah.
opportunity is very random. So you're gambling a lot on it. And if you're going to pay money to have a table at one of these things, you need to be doing better than gambling. So my first year, I had a few prints that were 11 by 14, but most of what I had were blank comic covers that I had drawn on and originals, black foam core with white Jelly Roll opaque pen on them. And I kind of I learned a hard lesson. I learned a good lesson, and in hindsight, a hard lesson. I priced my originals at $50,
Yeah.
and I practically sold out the first day on Friday. I was practically out of everything I had the first day I was there. That skewed my perception of what a convention should be like forever. Like, it took
Yeah.
years for me to figure out, you know, that is not how things normally go. Um, and I also had to realize, luckily, my wife, who's a photographer, had said, look, everything original you've done, you need to scan it. You need to buy a good scanner. You need one big enough for your artwork. And you need to scan it at 300 or 600 DPI. And you need a hard drive to put this on to back it up.
Yeah.
So I did all that. And luckily, even though I sold out of most of my originals, I still have the ability to recreate these at some point if I so choose. And I have with some of them. But the rest of the weekend was spent kind of like, I had a mostly empty table trying to sell the last few things. But I did have some great experiences. I had people come up and say they liked my art and they wanted me to critique their work. And
Yeah.
because of Jim Lee, I thought about how I would approach that, and I gave them as much useful information as I could without burning them, because someone will always burn them.
Yeah.
You go to your parents and your brothers and sisters and your closest friends to get the oh honey, this is wonderful, everything you do is wonderful, and to help build you up. You go to strangers to get that, what is this crap, I hate this, look at this crap, I'm gonna buy the stuff next to them because I hate
Yeah.
this one so much. And you go to an artist to try to get the honesty. And even if it comes in a package that's not as appealing, and I've had that since with different artists, I've gotten some good feedback that was delivered kind of with a little vinegar on it. It doesn't bother me anymore. Anytime someone tells me something that can be improved with my work, I immediately apply that, because every artist looks at their work for hours, for days, and you miss something because you're in it. Your
Yeah.
perspective of creating it and your idea that you have in your head of what's going to come out and how close you think it's getting to that. It's different from a person who casually walks by and has seen a ton of good artwork and then looks at yours and compares it mentally to what they just saw, and the things that stick out are valuable if it can be relayed to you in a way that isn't like meant to cause harm, but instead meant to provide assistance.
Yeah.
So long story short, 11 by 14 prints are annoying because Kinko's at the time and FedEx, if you get 11 by 14, they give it to you on an 11 by 17 and you have to go and slice it, or they charge you to slice it. So in recent years, I've been doing 11 by 17, even though it's a slightly less standard size, you can still get frames in that size. And I don't have to spend more hours on my work than I already do. I can just pick it up. And there are also tons of printers locally. Avanti, great printers in Englewood, terrific. I get the Vision Comic published through them. I get prints done through them. It's cheaper, not faster. It's about the same or a little bit slower. So if you plan for it, then you get the benefit of a really good price. And that's not to diss them. It is a reasonable amount of time. It's just not as fast as like 10 FedExes that are within my zip code that I can go to. If I need something today, I can send 20 here, 20 here, 20 here, and then go pick them all up and get them all really quickly than a single print shop. So it's really just a matter of scale. That's the only disadvantage. But the price way better. And I know Bob Conway, who does a lot of prints a lot of comics and artwork for people locally, and he gives me top-notch service every time. So I just plan ahead, like, when is my next con? What do I need for that? Talk to him. So the $20 price point to me is reasonable, partially because you might be carrying a $20 bill. It's a easy denomination that in your head you already have other things that you associate with that value. And an 11 by 17 poster, essentially on 80-pound paper, has a nice feel to it. Substantial compared to other paper. It's not as floppy. It holds the ink well. It looks nice. And it's something that you can hang up. It is just expensive enough that it feels like you paid for something significant, but it's not so expensive that you feel like you're getting ripped off. So to me, $20 is a good price point.
Makes sense.
You ran into some people at the last convention that were going well below that, and that's
$2. One guy charged me $2. One guy tried to give it to me for free after I told him I would pay, because he was so bummed out about not selling stuff. You could tell that was why. Like, the $2 guy was more that he had just never done a con before, and he was like, I just got stuff and I'm selling stuff for whatever price. And he was cool, and I talked to him a couple times. But the guy he was charging, his book said 15. It was like a flip book, and it said 15, which was totally fine. I don't even know it's bigger than the size that you print even. Like, it's a pretty big print. And I was $15 was totally fine. And I walked up to him and I was like, I hadn't seen the price yet. So I asked him, like, what's the price of your prints? Actually, I asked him what the price for one of his originals at first, and he told me $280, which actually I didn't feel was overpriced. It was the print I got. It was a very detailed piece. It was very big. I could see getting $280 made sense for it. I just had already spent more money where I wasn't comfortable paying that at that point. So, but he was totally justified in asking 280. But I was like, well, I can't afford that, so go to your prince. He was like, honestly, a couple bucks, whatever I can get at this point. But you can tell it was just like he was like defeated. You know what I mean? And I was like, come on, man. Like, I was like, I'll pay you what it's worth. He's like, $8. I was like, that's 15. I'll give you 15. It's no big deal.
I feel so bad for someone who's going through that, because like after, 2016 was a big year for me because I got to do 2 of the badges for Denver Comic Con. So 75,000 people on each day had my badges on them. And that was humongous for me. But it was also like, why am I doing this? Why do I care if my art is on here? Is it advertising for me? Is it an ego trip? Is it, do I think that it has some kind of value that maybe it doesn't? You have to try to leverage things. Are you at the con to get discovered, or are you at the con to make money off of your art? And yeah, if you have a couple of bad cons where you're not even making your table back, that will sting. That will hurt your ego. That will hurt your belief in yourself and in your own work. But after doing this since then, it was either 2015 or 2016 was my first year. No, it must have been 2015. It was my first year selling at a convention. So this would be 7 years for me now, not counting 2 pandemic years of the fuck knows, like nothing was going on during there. I was lucky to have a patron during that time.
Sure.
In 7 years, I've had conventions where I have lost money because of the cost of the table and food and gas, with no frills on top of that. Didn't even buy anything. And I've had conventions where I've made really good money and felt, I've sold some originals and had some professionals that I had come over that I respected and critique my work, give me some very useful information, and have been like a success in every measurable way, and everything in between. And I know how hard it is when you go out there with your heart in this artwork and you're not making anything. And part of it's because if this is your first con and you're going to the con's first con, you maybe don't know that you're rolling the dice on that. Like, the first con for anyone is always tough, because it has to build up that name, it has to build up the reputation, and it has to get enough people in there that you're getting the right people, that you're getting people that want to spend money on art. You're getting people that want to, encourage someone who's starting off and creating a career that might be the next Kevin Eastman or Peter Laird. If you're going just to see William Shatner and get stuff signed by him, are you going to buy Star Trek comics? Are you going to buy Star Trek fan art? Are you going to buy yellow shirts? Or are you going to already have that? You're already going to have the yellow shirt and you're just getting his picture for you or for your dad. I feel like some names are really good, like Stan Lee. People are buying like old Marvel stuff to get Stan Lee's artwork on there. Ray Park, people were buying Star Wars books, buying lightsabers, buying action figures to go and get him to sign it. Like, there has to be something strategic about it in every aspect of it. And when one part of it fails or one part of it can't succeed because it's just too early, it's too small, you're not going to get, Ray Park at your convention for your first year many times. You need to build up your knowledge to have the proper expectation. I went to their first inaugural con, knowing what inaugural cons are like financially, I'm going to support my friends, and I'm going to hope that this gets a second year, and I know that they'll be glad that I was here and want me back. And they raised my profile by putting my picture in the Greeley newspaper. They blasted me on, positively on Facebook. My picture is on a billboard. My artwork was on a billboard, like one of the electronic ones that changes. They did a lot of very positive steps for marketing and for making people aware of who is going to be there and helping put a megaphone to your voice. So I've never been to an inaugural con that had that kind of media effect and that kind of output on that. So To me, even if I hadn't had that, I'm still helping another con get started. I'm still paying for a table and being there and bringing people there and giving myself more opportunities. If this con survives 5 years down the line, then I've got 5 more years of opportunities to get my book out there and get my art out there.
Sure.
It's an investment, and sometimes an investment does not pay off right away. It does not pay off in a certain way immediately, but you know what it's worth, so you do that ahead of time. And for those folks that you were talking to that maybe this is their first con, that it's a hard way to start off. If it's your first con and their first con, you're it's going to be a rough start. It's going to be a rough start unless you're very lucky. And that's why when I sold out of nearly all my originals, that first day of my first con, I was like, I can do this forever. I could make a living doing this. I could just quit my job and do this. And by the next con, I learned that would not be the case. Not yet. Not at that time. So I had to learn a lot of hard lessons. And thankfully, I have a good day job, pays for my bills, puts food in my mouth, and takes care of me, and allows me the time to work on this stuff after work and on the weekends to pursue my dream. So at the very minimum, I'm not going to go out to a convention just to throw my art away at anybody who walks by because I'm hurt. But I understand how people can feel that way. It's just you have to compare your art to what you think other people are charging, that's you feel is around your level, or that you feel is the level you want to be at, and you charge that, and you don't lower your prices unless it's the last day and you're just trying to make a sale. I mean, if someone haggles with me, if someone negotiates, if someone's like, would you take a couple bucks off? I don't mind. I'm not there to like fight over a couple of bucks.
Yeah.
I
mean, you weren't there, but I was trying to pitch a sale that didn't go through. But they were trying to decide between 2 prints, and I offered them because I figured you would be cool with it. Because if they took 2 prints for $30 instead of getting 2 buy 2 get 1 free.
Okay.
They still didn't go through with it, but I figured you'd have been cool with it.
Yeah, I would have been fine, because 2 things happen. I get more money than what I paid for the paper, which is one thing people seem to not understand about prints. Like, oh, well, if you're only paying $4 to get this big size print done, why should I pay 20 for it? And I'm like, because I'm not charging you for a blank piece of paper. If you want that,
we talked
you
about
can
all
buy
the logistics. Like, I don't understand why people get it in everything but art. And it's the same thing for like photography. It's the same thing for everything. It's like, yeah, dude, it's a piece of paper with artwork that I spent X hours on, that was driven here by gas that cost me X dollars, that is on this table that cost me X dollars, that I can only sit at because I spent X dollars on food. And it's just like, it costs more than $2 to get this in front of you. Yeah. And like you said, and at the end of the weekend, there's a good chance that you getting this print in your hand actually cost me money.
And I'll go down a few bucks if I know someone likes my artwork and that's all that they've got left after they've bought their, Cthulhu Pokemon or whatever. Yeah. And they're like, I got $15, man. Would you do a $20 print for 15? I'll be like, yeah, you're going to have this in your home. You're going to see my art. You're going to look at it one day, and you're asking me this because you like it. You wouldn't be asking me this if you didn't like it. If you didn't think this would look good somewhere in your home, or look good in your folder, or think that it might have value someday because you think I've got potential and that it might have, be worth a signature at some point. Like, all of these things are a positive in my mind. And I'm willing to drop a couple of bucks for that, but I'm going to start off at a price point that I think is completely reasonable, that other people charge for similar things. And when people go to a convention and they have a bad convention or two and they're like dropping their prices, like, don't drop the price on what you've already made. If you want to make some smaller ones and sell those as the economy version of it, do that. But keep your keep your value there. If you tell everyone your hand-drawn art is worth $2 because you feel bad, you're making the negative experience worse. You're adding more misery onto something that could have been better for you.
Also, too, it's important. I noticed this. The level of engagement is also important because a lot of people and this goes both ways. A lot of people have been I went up to. There's a few people I wanted to buy stuff from, but it was just like, and I know we can't help if we're a little awkward, but it was so awkward that I just didn't even, like, they were like, I was like, hey, how you doing? And they're like, yeah. And it's like, what is this? I don't know. I'm just like, all right, I guess I'll leave. It's like, even if you got to practice in front of a mirror, man, like a 15-second spiel of like, hey, how's it going? Let me know if you have any questions. Discuss X, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're good at doing it. You're good at doing it. You always engage people to come to your booth. But I ran into a few people that it was just like, I was like, man, I think I'm inconveniencing you by buying your artwork.
Oh,
and then
man.
There were some people that, like, you can't detach from either, where it's like becomes awkward in the other way, where you're like,
like, I'm done. Can I go?
Yeah, I would like to leave now.
So there's an art to that too. And I'm not, there are people way better at selling than me, way better. And I know them and I've met them and I've watched them do it and I hate how they do it, which is why I can't. So the AC style, the AC way of doing things is, if you walk by, I'm going to make eye contact. I'm going to greet you. I'm going to make sure you know that I know you're there if you need something. And then I'll turn. I'll turn to the person that's with me. I'll turn to the art. I'll turn to my phone. Because a lot of people that come to these things, a lot of people got into comic books because they're introverts.
Yeah.
And when you put too much social pressure, you kind of force them away. So you just let them know the door's open. I'm right here. If you need anything, I got a smile ready for you and I can answer whatever questions you want. But I'm not going to sit here and stare at you waiting for you to make a decision. I'm not going to put pressure on you.
Super awkward too. Just the opposite direction.
I hate it myself. When I'm going around and looking at stuff, I'll like smile at people and then I'll turn my head and keep going. And if their eyes follow me, I'm like, yeah, I got to keep going. Like I cannot be the person that you are depending on to validate you being here, to make your day, to come and turn a failure into a success. Like, that's too much pressure for me. And I'm I'm an extrovert, honestly, and I had to pick up introvert tendencies because nobody liked what I liked growing up. So I had to kind of protect myself a bit. And now that you can like comics and not have to be fast or strong to face off the bullies that mess with you because of it, it's a different world. And but there's still a lot of introverts. There's still a lot of people that these stories resonate to them because it's a justice and it's a kindness and it's a connection that they don't see in the real world. And realizing this and realizing that when you make eye contact with people and you don't stop, like, there's pressure that goes with that. If you just say, hey, what's up? If you need anything, I'm right here. And then you go about your business. And that gives them the moment to say, oh, well, actually, and you're like, yeah, what you need? And then you give them all of your attention, all of your focus. But
the other thing, but
I mean, that's basically it. It's not a trick. It's just my way of doing things. It's like you invite them in, and then you get to the business of whatever you're doing, so that they can look at it and not worry that you're going to look at them like a puppy dog that needs to be taken home from the adoption clinic. Yeah. Like, that's too much pressure for people.
Way too much. But the other way I realized that's just super easy to engage with people, as long as it's genuine. But I feel like most of the time it's going to be because if you're exhibiting, you're probably also a nerd to some degree.
I'd hope so. But yeah.
Everyone at a con has almost everyone has an obvious thing that they like in some way, shape, or form. Either they're wearing it, they're carrying it. I don't know, some people you can just tell they like. It's just they're there because they like certain things. So just asking them about their thing and having a conversation with them is a good way. I think I sold a few prints that way when I was there, where I'm just like, hey man, that's cool. Yeah, one for sure I know I did because the kid was wearing a Superman belt and a Buzz Lightyear T-shirt, and I was like, he was walking with his dad, and he was like 4, and I was like, what kind of blasphemy is this, Buzz Lightyear Superman? And then we got to talking, and then that was the guy I think that maybe bought the Moon Knight. I can't remember before you had gotten there. But we just had a conversation. He liked one of your pieces, went on from there. You know what I mean?
But yeah, no, and that's another great way to engage. People come by and they've spent days, weeks, months putting together a cosplay suit out of foam that they had to measure, and they had to do all this work for, and paint and learn skills they didn't have for it. And so if someone comes by, I'll acknowledge it and I'll say, it looked like it took some time. And either they'll say, yeah, and they'll be happy to chat it up, or they'll say, nah, I just bought it, or my friend made it. It's like, maybe there's a story there. But you just, like, it's about opening the door. You open the door and you let them walk through if they want to. I'm not high pressure. I hate that. And I've seen people do it to great success. I've seen people sit there and talk their own work up in a way that feels insincere, to the point
it makes you wonder if they're buying the stuff though at that point because it's like they liked it, or if they were just like,
just get off me here, take my money and leave me alone. Like
I would never want to sell somebody something that for that reason, you know.
No,
I'm not saying I would never accuse anyone of doing that because that's between you and yourself. Yeah, I'm not saying anyone does do that, but yeah, because I'm sure that I've bought things before just because I'm like, I want to leave now.
If I do this, they'll leave me alone. They'll stop talking to me after the check is paid. Like, yeah, I don't like that. And if I applied a little more pressure, I could probably do that. But that's not how I like to do things, and I like to enjoy myself at these cons. So I don't want to feel gross at the end of the day. I don't want to feel like I debased myself to get $20. I'm not in a position where that's the only food coming into my mouth. If it were, whatever. If you have to like debase yourself, if you have to erase your dignity, if you have to, push someone a little bit to buy something they didn't want because you need to feed your kids, because you need to take care of your spouse, because you are about to lose your house and this is the only way you're going to do it, you fucking do it. That's love. Yeah. That is justified. But, I'm okay. I have a job that takes care of me.
Different situations.
So I don't feel like that's what I have to do. So if I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to make money. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to make some new people aware of that I exist and that I've got art out there. And I'm going to take that money and put it into paying for my next con and my art supplies and my iPad Pro. And, I make my hobby. Well, I use my hobby to pay for the hobby.
Definitely. Yeah, it makes sense. I was going to say, I don't know. It's not up to us to dictate that too, but just being at a bunch of them too, I would say along that same vein, because it's a social space, I think that that's just like a very good rule in general on how to act with people at a con.
Yeah.
Because like you said, a lot of people are introverted. Some people are extroverted. A lot of people are just there because they think it's cool and they don't want to hang out with people. Just because I've noticed sometimes there's overabundance of like touching or feeling or trapping people in conversations they don't want to be a part of. It's just like, that's just important to notice that it's not a party. You know what I mean? Like, have fun, do your thing, be yourself. But for some people, this is the space they feel safe, and like, it's a community in that way. So I don't know. If you're going to check it out, if you're going to put a booth together, I think just as long as you treat it that way, you'd probably be doing all right to some degree at least.
Yeah, and honestly, like think how different your interactions would have gone if the people who were like hiding from your critical gaze or whatever they thought it was, if they had taken a moment to tell you about what they were doing, they could have made a friend, they could have made a lifelong fan, they could have made just someone aware of what they do. And when you see their stuff in a year, in their own book or in their sketchbook or online, you'd be like, oh, I know this guy. I had a great interaction with them. I want to talk with them again, and I want to see what they're doing now. It was the people like that I engaged with that I want to emulate. That's the interaction those are the interactions that I typically get, because that's what I aim for. You can get that by accident, but leaving everything to chance makes it very likely you're going to waste a lot of time and money. And you can have fun and not waste time and money if you do a little pre-planning and figure out how you want to approach people and get comfortable with your way of doing things, whatever that is. Some people are extremely shy, and that's endearing. Some people are extremely outgoing, and that's endearing. Some people just kind of like leave you your space and leave you to be comfortable in it, and that that works for them too. So every person needs to find the way they're good at interacting with people. Unless you just want to be at your desk all the time drawing and you never need to see people because you're working for Marvel, DC, or Image, or whatever, Dynamite, Zenescope, anything. And your goal is to be by yourself in a room drawing all the time and never having to interact with people. I'm going to say going to a convention and getting a table is probably not your best way of getting there. Yeah. The odds of that happening, it's not like it was in the 90s where they were looking for people constantly to come and help them sell 1 million books a month of anything that was coming out. I mean, how many books did Liefeld have in his studio, in Extreme Studios? I mean, there was Youngblood that he did, then there was Brigade, and there was the individual ones like about Battlestone and Bedrock, and and they were all guys that drew like him. And there were people that were basically going to conventions, and if they looked like they had talent, they were like, come with me because I'll add you to my studio, and I'll have 20 people there, and we'll make 10 books that each sell 1 million books every month, because they're speculators and a lot of people are interested in the comic industry right now, and et cetera, et cetera. But like, it was profitable and it made business sense to expand as fast as you could because the market seemed like it could absorb it. It wasn't until after that, when things recalibrated, that it's not the same. People aren't like selling so many damn comics that they need to take anybody who's, got any kind of potential so that they can push them out there. Those days are gone. They might come back again, but at this phase, we have.
If anything, I think we're more likely to see a further reduction soon.
Yeah, I mean, the way the companies, Marvel and Disney owning Marvel and Warner Brothers, and I think who owns Warner Brothers now? Someone just bought them.
I know you're right, but I don't know who it is.
Whoever that was, AT&T maybe.
I remember seeing that on like my news feed though, that somebody bought them. I didn't read
it. I think it's AT&T, and so AT&T looks at DC movies as moneymakers and looks at the comics as a commercial for the movies, and so does Disney with Marvel. They see them as a loss leader. They're the thing that's on sale to get you interested to come and look at the other stuff. The comics themselves have not been. I mean, the industry's contracted for a while, and people who are cranky about certain things like, oh, there's too many brown people in it now, or there's too much wokeness, or there's too much whatever. Like, this has nothing to do with the fact that you're not getting newer readers.
There's not enough wokeness. I was talking to one of your friends. I forget what his name is. He's a slightly bigger guy, but he's not that big, and I believe he's gay as well. He said he had a husband.
Was that Pepper?
Could be Pepper. Not sure.
He's a sweetheart.
And I will not discuss the project he was working on because I don't want to go into that. But he was a very nice guy.
Pepper's a sweetheart.
He was talking about how he was drawing a book, and he had like 2 or 3 characters that weren't even like big; they were just a little overweight. And how those weren't even central characters; those were just like background. They were in the book, but they weren't the focus. Mm-hmm. But the feedback came back that he could only have one character that was slightly bigger. And I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" Like a random person in your book can't be slightly overweight. Like
look at the world, man. Come on.
But they're not even the focus. I mean, as a big guy, I would kind of understand if you're like, no fat Superman. I don't care. But like, no fat Superman. I'm like, all right, whatever. But like, guy driving Superman in a cab can't be fat. That's weird.
I mean, it isn't. Yeah, I have some issues with the complaints people have about this because they're unfair complaints and they're not knowledgeable complaints. They're purposely ignorant. Superman is a fucking immigrant who is part of the press, who is married to an extremely strong feminist, who is the dominant, you could say is probably the dominant person in their relationship. Like all the things about him are basically like left-wing liberal, from the ideology of taking down like robber barons and crooked landowners, and fighting a wealthy industrialist who says he has good intentions but doesn't, and it's like everything about Superman. He was written by Canadian Jews who he was their way of fighting back at this, these negative ideas and these negative stereotypes that people had of immigrants and of the other. And he was the ultimate wokeness. He is the ultimate, aside from the fact that he looks like, a square-jawed white guy and is called the Superman, which was again like a slap at the Nazis and the Ubermensch idea. Only in a vaguely cosmetic way could you say Superman represents anything other than a completely top to bottom woke character that everyone has loved all these years, that appreciates and get his value system, and say that it's even the thing that they aspire to. The very first big superhero that made it anywhere is the perfect example of the things that people are saying, well, we never had that in comics before, we didn't need that. It's like you were a kid looking at a guy punching dudes who were drawn to look like criminals, who look like mafiosos. That lack of awareness is not an excuse to demonize the way people write books now. It's not the writer's fault that you were a kid and didn't get this very obvious characterization, and that's not anyone else's fault. That's the person's own fault if they choose not to understand what's already been there. I mean,
it's just plain I don't know, ignorant too. Like look at Valiant. Like they have an entire book where the main character is not what you would consider like normal superhero body type. With their book Faith.
Faith, yeah.
It's a bigger girl. Mm-hmm. And not only is it a good comic, it's a successful comic for them. Like people aren't gonna not buy your book because there's a fat person in it. Like it's fine.
It's
so random to me that like that's still not. It's like, again, I have. I mean, like brothers, friends. I have an incredibly thick skin when it comes to like being mocked or whatever. But like for some reason in our like woke society today, it's like still pretty acceptable to like pick on fat people and Hispanics for some reason. And I'm like, again, most of the Hispanic jokes I think are hilarious, but for some reason like it's still fine in those two genres, and like even evidently in the comic book world, they're like no fat people. And no real Hispanics either, because I don't see them in comics either that much.
Dude, there's not that many. I used to joke that like if someone was going to make a Hispanic, they had to be a bug-themed legacy character, because they were coming out of the wood. Like Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara, Miles Morales, Blue Beetle, Jaime. I forget his last name.
And Miles Morales only has a Hispanic name. Like
isn't his mom Hispanic? But it might also be like Caribbean. I mean, I need to read Miles Morales. I honestly I'm out of the loop a little bit on there, so I need to know more.
as like African American. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
And definitely they portray him in that way in the comic.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird. Yeah. I just noticed that. I was like, I don't think there are Mexicans besides like what you said. Like
there are a couple, but like, okay, so one of the complaints is, well, why do people just keep stealing other characters? It's like, well, because not enough people decide to try new things and really make it hard. Like there's I don't know 10 Green Lanterns right now. One of them is Jessica Cruz, and she's also Latina and lesbian, and either lesbian or bi. I'm not 100% sure, but she's part of the new group, and I say new over the last like 5 years. There's a Muslim Green Lantern. There was already John Stewart, who's African American. I think there's another African American Green Lantern now. And the great thing about Green Lantern is that of all the super characters you can get that make sense, that you can just pass it to whatever race, whatever ethnicity, whatever gender, and give them powers, it's a magic ring based on your courage. Like that one makes perfect sense. Now, I'm going to vent for just a second because Kyle Rayner, who replaced Hal Jordan, there was a story written about him in the Green Lantern comic, in continuity, official DC continuity, where you find out that his dad was like a Mexican law enforcement agent who was abusive to his mom, and they divorced, and that's why Kyle kept his name Rayner, kept his mother's name, but that he had a Mexican father. Now, the Mexican father did not seem like a great guy, but he existed, and he was part of Kyle's heritage. And so now the Justice League had a Latino character in it. And, he looked white because Latinos can look like anything. But it was an interesting moment because when they did the New 52, they completely erased it. His father was just, he looked like Vincent Price or something. Like, I think he had a mustache. I think he had like short white hair. I think he had like a pipe. I mean, I may be remembering it wrong. It's been a while. But I was like, did you just whitewash like the only Latin character in the Justice League?
I'm sure. DC has a tendency to do that kind of thing.
And DC is usually like, they're all, the new characters that have come out in the last few years with DC and Marvel have been all across the ethnic spectrum, the gender spectrum, anything like that. They're advancing the options there for people who want to read about a character like them. And I hear just kind of the worst complaints online, and really never read the comment section on an article about anything that has to do with a ethnic character in a comic book, because it's just toxic garbage. But one of the complaints is like, well, why does everyone have to have a superhero? Because motherfucker, there's like a million superheroes. The fact that we don't already have one for everything is what's abnormal. In a fictional world where you can make anything, where you can give anyone in reality some escapism, the flaw is in not doing it.
It just doesn't. It's not even logical. Like, for so long, like, you can go the opposite way too. I think for so long, like, lesbian and gay people weren't included at all. Now it's almost as if they're trying to make too many gay and lesbian characters gay and lesbian for no reason. But I'm fine with that much more than not having any.
And it's a societal pendulum. Like, if you go too far with your narrow worldview, you can only expect that when the dam finally breaks, all that societal pressure, all of that awareness, all of those examples that were waiting to come out are now all coming out. And so it feels to some people like a lot, but if that representation had always been there, and people say, oh, well, there have been gay characters. Yeah, you could probably name like a handful over the years. And, as far as like the top Justice League or the top Avengers, that wasn't really a thing. In both of them, I mean, there was a green Justice League guy before there was a black one, before there was a Latin one. There is in the Avengers.
There was a Martian. Why is Aquaman white? He's from Atlantis, which very likely was an island. I mean, it's more of a continent, which would make him some form of islander.
Right. It makes sense. Momoa is inspired casting. It really makes a lot of sense. But actually, as I was thinking about this, Avengers, their first non-white character was the Hulk. It was another green dude. Yeah. Before they had brown or black or anything, they had green. Green was more acceptable. An alien was more acceptable than the people that you worked with, that you went to Vietnam with, that you bought your food from, that watched your kids, that were your bosses. An alien was more considered a possibility. And that is how fucked up our thinking was. And that is why people, if people say, oh, well, we're overcompensating now. No, we're rebalancing. And unfortunately, rebalancing involves a lot of changes.
Yeah.
So, and okay, like Blue Beetle's been restarted a couple of times. He doesn't sell like Batman. Nobody sells like Batman. He doesn't even sell like Spider-Man. Jessica Cruz is Green Lantern. Green Lantern books haven't been the top sellers in a while. There's people are complaining about something that's not even cutting into their primary entertainment. Like people reading Batman, oh, well, there's a black Batman. Okay, well, it's Lucius Fox's son. Like at least there's another guy that is part of the story that's connected to it. They didn't just I don't know, you can pluck someone random out of thin air. Why the fuck not? It's fucking comics.
Why couldn't Batman just train somebody else to be Batman because he's done being Batman and that person's black?
He's got a whole army, man. And
why couldn't Superman just be I hear people bitching about the black Superman, and I'm like, granted, it's not normal, but I don't have any problem with it. My only problem with it is I think the Superman we have now is the definition of the dude who looks like Superman. And he just to me he was born to be Superman. But besides that, I have no problem with him being black.
Well, and Marvel and DC they're leaning heavily into the multiverse thing. So do Val-Or, or if that's his name, I don't even remember, Superman of Earth 2, or in Justice League Gods and Monsters, I think that was what it was called. Zod on Earth was actually he was a Kryptonian that was raised by Mexican illegal immigrants. And so he had that, if not color and not background, he had that cultural identity, much like Clark had the cultural identity of the farmers from Kansas. And that informed his behavior, and that it created an interesting dynamic. There are a lot of stories that are yet to be told, and anyone who complains about people having an opportunity to tell some new ones, they can go back and read 80 years worth of mostly the same looking character with every different mask on that you can imagine in all these comic books, and they will die of old age before they finish reading them all. That opportunity is there. I'm not saying you can't still have your white Superman, but why not also have characters of other colors that can do amazing stuff too?
Sure.
It
doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Dude, growing up, I wished there were an awesome Latino character that I could be hey, look, there's at least one. What do we have in the Justice League cartoon? There is El Dorado, whose powers were who the fuck knows. It wasn't even in the comics.
It's like I said, for some reason, it's still just Mexican Latinos is just still one of the things you can either A, shit on, or you can just be so grossly Mexify it that it's just. Look at Suicide Squad. The Mexican in Suicide Squad was El Diablo. What's his name?
Yeah, Diablo. Yeah.
Yeah, he has tattoos all over his face. He becomes a giant Mexican fire god. I'm like, Jesus. should a Moroccan band, like, should a mariachi be walking behind this guy as he's fighting crime? Like, I don't understand it. Like I said, to me, I have thick skin. It doesn't bother me, but I'm just like, you would never do that to another race. Like, you would never be like, and this is our teammate, Zulu Warrior. Like, he has a spear. Like, that would never happen.
Oh, dude, years ago, and this is not the first time that this has happened. There was a big deal when DC was making a new Latin character called El Diablo, and he's basically like a modern day Zorro. And my dad, who didn't like Star Trek, didn't like Star Wars, didn't like superheroes, didn't like, he still supported me in everything, despite like his own misgivings and his own very different opinions. He never crapped on what I liked. But we were watching the news at the same time when this was announced, and I was like, okay, I mean, like, do I want to get this? And Dad was like, why does the first Mexican superhero that they're acknowledging have to be named after the devil? Don't they know that most of us are Catholic? Who's going to look at that and go, yeah, awesome? So when, they picked El Diablo or whatever for the Suicide Squad, I'm like, shit, they like, DC keeps thinking Mexicans are all about the devil. And it's like, dude, either Catholic or like Mayan Aztec or Brujeria. And in none of those are we like, yeah, I'm going to look up to the devil. Death, maybe, but not the...
It's not just comic books. It's like all of culture. Like, every time I see a Hispanic thing, it's so over the top. So ridiculous. I don't get it.
Yeah, my dad used to comment on, like, how come every time they show Mexican celebrations, the first thing they put up is Day of the Dead? And it's all the sugar skulls and it's all the face paint.
Have you noticed, too, it's completely fine for anyone to celebrate anything Day of the Dead, which I 100% think it is.
Oh, fully support. Yeah. Like, come on, enjoy my culture. I love it. Be part of it.
But you can't do that with other cultures and their stuff. Or it's cultural appropriation, and you're taking this, and you're... Yeah. And I saw a video the other day where people were giving this guy crap about having dreadlocks. This white guy. This cultural appropriation. And I was like, matted hair did not originate in Africa. Like, if you go back to just about any indigenous people who didn't bathe very often, to some degree they had dreadlocks because that's what happens to your hair when you don't wash it. Like,
oh man. So yeah, like, I don't know. It's weird, and part of it's because like it's how it happened. Like when people see Day of the Dead stuff and they're like, hey, I'm gonna wear a sombrero and I'm gonna put on this makeup, or you go to like a Mexican restaurant and they give you a sombrero and wish you happy birthday and sing it in Spanish. Like, it's very welcoming and open, and it's fine. It's just and no Latino I know has a problem with other people enjoying our culture, and there's a very welcoming attitude towards it. But when people shit on it, when people like act in a dumbass way about something, then you're like, all right, dude, back off. Take a lesson here. But I think that some cultures feel like most of the people that try to sample their culture do so in a disrespectful manner. Think of like a certain president that I don't. He made a comment like, "Oh, I love Mexicans because I love tacos or something." Yeah, so, dude, shut up. That's a stupid fucking thing to say. You do not get to celebrate Dia de los Muertos with us. You do not get to wear a sombrero. You fuck off. You're an idiot.
It's definitely a stupid way to do it. Let's just say it.
Oh, yeah.
But to me, I'm like, if your average person has it on their body, they're probably not doing it to be disrespectful to you. Like, that is a very weird reason for a hairstyle.
Yeah. I mean,
or the average person's probably not eating tacos to shit on you.
Right. I mean, the amount of commitment you've got to have to grow dreadlocks out, that takes time. That's not like I woke up this morning and I decided to put on an Indian headdress and pretend that I'm like, a Native American princess or something. It's like, you're dumb. Knock it off. Take that off.
Did you ever see the show Iglesias on Netflix?
Mm.
You know who Gabriel Iglesias is, the comic? Fluffy, they call him. He's like a bigger guy.
Yeah. I know. I know who Fluffy.
So he has like a sitcom like show that ran for a couple seasons. I don't know if it's canceled or not. It was on Netflix. He's a teacher, and in one of the episodes, his friend comes by the school with tacos from his taco truck, and everybody loves his tacos, except one of the girls who's Latina in the classroom doesn't think he should be able to own the taco truck because he's Korean. And at first,
oh boy,
everybody's like, "You're ridiculous." And I thought that this was going to go the obvious way, where it was going to be like, "Hey, he's just a guy. He's not, he loves tacos. He's a taco truck. It's okay." I thought that was going to be the point of the show. But by the end, no, it wasn't. It was taken to the point of she's right. I was like, she's not right. Like, folded meat inside of bread
that's worldwide, man.
Cultures before.
Worldwide.
Like, the taco, I think of taco as pretty Mexican, but if you make a good taco, I don't care what you look like.
Look, don't say it's an authentic taco unless you were raised by Latinos. And if you're a Korean, there's nothing that says you can't be raised by Latinos. Yeah. But that would be like the only limitation I would say. Like, don't say it's authentic Mexican food if you were like, I just decided today I'm going to make a taco truck. It'd be like, I can't think of a good analogy off the back of my head, or top of my head, back of my head. But I'm not offended by it unless someone is like, this is the greatest Mexican food from an authentic Mexican you will ever have. And it's, some Korean dude who's not Mexican, not raised by Mexicans, is making it out of the box, which that would be offensive.
Agreed. There's a point at which it could go too far.
If you're making tacos out of the frozen section in the grocery store and passing it off as authentic, we have a problem.
We have strayed again far off.
We need taco trucks at every convention. I think that should happen, and I don't care if Koreans are running them. If a Korean will do it, bring it. I will buy your tacos.
Plus, if you've ever had kimchi, I have to think it's probably fairly amazing inside of a taco.
It is. Oh my god, it is. Yeah, like I've had some pork kimchi tacos before.
Yeah,
maybe it's not
delicious.
They are incredibly good. I don't know that the food truck was labeling them as authentic Mexican food, but it tasted good, and I wasn't offended. So,
all right. Well, I think for time restrictions, we went much longer than we wanted to anyway.
Unexpectedly, I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, I was like, was it like 12:45? I was like, it's 1:20. Okay, we should wrap this up.
Yeah, we bungled the time limit. It's fine. We got more material.
Yeah. So I think all that to wrap up was saying, like, if you haven't gone to a con, you should go. They're really fun. Respect people, respect boundaries. If you want to go to a con as a representative of yourself and you've put the time in and you think you're at that place, I would encourage you to do it. I think AC would as well. Don't be afraid to go talk to other vendors. I mean, I was being very accepted as a vendor, even though I was not a vendor, just because I had a vendor badge on. So
you're my vendor wingman. It worked out.
The crowd was very welcoming as far as like the other people working there. So it's a cool experience, I think, from getting to see the other side of just going to one too. If you have a part of yourself that you've developed to that degree that you want to share, whatever it is, I would say go for it. Maybe you'll pick a smaller con at first so it's a little cheaper. I don't know, but
yes. That is a good takeaway.
I think it's a positive experience overall. So, thanks for joining us. I'm Doyle. This is AC. This is Doyle or AC and me, and we'll talk to you guys 2 Thursdays from now. I don't even know whenever you see this. Thanks, guys.
Sounds good.
Bye.